Let's bring in now body language expert Tanya Raymond to get a deeper understanding of the president's address last night and the things he didn't say with his mouth, but he said with his body. Great to see you, Tanya.
Hi, good to see you as well.
All right. I said I wasn't going to watch the speech. I usually am in bed by 9 o'clock, full disclosure. But I wound up watching it anyway because the imagery was striking for someone who watches these things normally. You had an emptied out room, a lot of mask wearing. But tell us about the president. We're watching some video of him now. How did you see his address?
Interestingly enough, he seemed very calm, actually much calmer than he was during the debates, which makes sense. At the same time, he seemed at ease until you hit certain key markers. So when we talked about gun violence, you saw a little bit of a change in his demeanor, like you saw him tighten up. And when we talked about healthcare, there was also that same kind of tightening up. So I think overall he did well. His voice was good. And more importantly, his skin color was good, because the last couple of times we've seen him, he kind of looked pasty. So here he looked really on board. He looked healthy. He looked natural. His hand movements were natural. He used positive gestures when he needed, meaning downward when it was appropriate to be dominant, and then somewhat upward when it was appropriate to be kind of submissive. And at the same time, everything was fluid. Again, 2 times I saw that there were red flags, and the one was healthcare and the other one was gun violence.
You know, one of the things, too, that I've noticed about the president is some of his addresses, his speeches have been done outside. And, you know, I think they're trying, from an image standpoint, to create this scale so everyone looks socially distant. And the president looks like he's struggling sometimes, you know, squinting, trying to read a teleprompter that looks like it's very far away. But, of course, you know, we could do an assessment on Ted Cruz falling asleep, and what that tells us, we know, right? We know that's an easy one to interpret.
But you know what? You bring up Ted Cruz, and that was something that actually shocked me. At one point, and I'd have to go through my notes again, but at one point, as Biden's speaking, Ted Cruz stands up and applauds. And I thought that was something I'm not honestly a Ted Cruz fan, based not only on his personality, but also on his nonverbals. And I thought that showed a great deal of respect for, you know, you can always say this is not my president, but at the same time, he is the president. So Ted Cruz stood up at one point and not only made eye contact, but he also applauded. And I gave him a little kudos for that.
Well, or either that, or maybe he had nodded off and heard the applause, and that's what forced him to wake up. But that sometimes happens. Yeah. You know, the other thing too that I was struck by is after this speech, President Biden goes down. We talked about this a second ago with Trish and with Eric, but he made a beeline for Bernie Sanders. A lot of close kind of interaction with the masks on. It seemed discordant with the message they're trying to project sometimes, that they're distanced from everybody. But again, it looked very strange and kind of staged, if you will.
But no, those two are very close. I mean, if you've watched them over the last few years, even, of course, they went head to head. There was a lot of headbutting, but at the same time, those two are close people. So even with the masks, they've both been vaccinated. So I can't see that was an issue. I think the mask thing is just to more show people outside who have not yet been vaccinated.
Yeah, that's the thing, is like it's for show, and I think they know it's for show, but they feel obligated to do it so they don't look like they're really wearing the mask for the real intention. You know, we see a little awkward elbow bump there too. And again,
the fist bumping last night, a lot of elbow. You're right.
Yes. And you know more about this than I do. But to me, as the non-trained professional in body language reading, it does seem to me like they are just putting on a show with the mask and the social distancing, that they don't actually believe in it, but they feel obligated to do so because it's the quote-unquote right thing to do.
No, see, I disagree. I don't think that they don't feel it's the right thing to do. I think it's more that what they're doing is trying to say to people, if you have not been vaccinated, if you are in fear of being COVID positive, then we're wearing these masks in order to keep things under control. People who already have had the vaccination or who already have the antibodies for COVID, I think those people are a little bit more comfortable. And I guess that might be why they felt the need to just like wear the masks and then hug. But at the same time, I think that that's not being deceptive. I think it's more being, hey, I'm trying to show you what the right thing to do is.
No, I'm
This
not
is
impugning
what
their
we
motives. I think
should do.
they're trying to do the right thing. They believe they're doing the right thing. They just don't
Right.
believe in the science that they're projecting sometimes. But of course, Tanya, you know more about this, how to read people than I do. Admittedly
Yeah,
so.
well, I don't know more about the science than anyone else does, but at
Well,
the same
it's
time,
hard to know.
yes,
It's hard to say who knows what
nonverbal.
about the science these days, Tanya. We got to cut it off there. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Always great to get your insight on this stuff, the body language.